Seminole Sidelines here on a Monday afternoon. Thanks for watching Osceola YouTube channel, Twitter, Facebook. Breaking news as Leonard Hamilton is resigning in the press release. Really, this is a retirement for all intents and purposes. So Kurt Weiler, Osceola senior writer, Bob Ferranti, Osceola editor, we're going to reflect a little bit on this decision now, the legacy of Leonard Hamilton, what's next for Florida State men's basketball. A lot of things to unpack. We're going to try and keep this pretty tight for you on a Monday as we're still trying to process some of this breaking news. Kurt's working on a nice column that will be posted on the Osceola later today. I think let's start with the immediacy of the legacy. When we think back, Kurt, big picture of what Leonard Hamilton has meant to Florida State, what is it to you?
I mean, it's getting a program that had no business being competitive in a basketball conference to, like, for a few periods of time, be incredibly competitive. I mean, at Florida State, when you're at a place that, I mean, relative to the Dukes and UNCs and Louisvilles and others of the world, your basketball funding is not close to the same. I mean, to win an ACC tournament, to win an ACC regular season, I mean, it's frankly, it's remarkable. I mean, it's not to say it can't get there again, but I mean, it was a unparalleled level, like, run of success for the Florida State basketball program in terms of how long it lasted. I mean, he had multiple great runs, and I mean, you can't help but dwell on the what could have been of that 2020 season. I mean, that's the really unfortunate thing is, like, Leonard Hamilton deserved to be a Final Four coach, and I think we all think that could very well have been the year it happened, and the pandemic denied him that opportunity, and that's frankly tragic.
Leonard Hamilton, again, I've said a few times, he's the only man on the planet to turn around 3 basketball programs at football schools. Yep. Oklahoma State, Miami. That Miami program was not even around. I believe he was the second coach to come in and carry that program. And then after some time off, some time with the Washington Wizards for year and a half or so, jumps back into college coaching, arrives at Florida State March of 2002. It was a very, very long time ago, when I think we all were a little bit younger. Big picture, this is an expected day. I think the other thing before we move into the basketball part of it, the graduation rate is phenomenal, folks. In a sport where a lot of coaches were transactional before the transfer portal, Leonard Hamilton made sure that his athletes graduated. The number is very, very few. I believe it is 2 guys who were at Florida State for 4 years who do not have a bachelor's degree. It is insanely low. He tracks down and keeps up with players, makes sure that they get their classes, whether it's Florida State or other schools. He wants to make sure that they eventually get that bachelor's degree. A number of them come back to visit the program, work out at the basketball training center. So those relationships, not just Leonard Hamilton, also assistant coach Stan Jones, who's been here the whole way. Part of that legacy is there was consistency in the head coach, consistency in the top assistant coach. Okay, so we talked a little bit about some of the really, really good. March 2012, I slept on the floor of a hotel room in Atlanta covering the ACC tournament. 3 straight wins, Miami, Duke, North Carolina. I think it's one of the best weekends in Florida State history. There's been some great weekends for the women's soccer program getting those national titles. But as far as just, Kurt, you talked to me the other day about going to see the Seminoles when they were in a different ACC tournament in Atlanta. You grew up there. Just, we have fond memories seeing this program kind of grow under Leonard Hamilton. Let's just talk personally about what those kind of runs meant for us and for this fan base.
Yeah, I mean, I think they accomplished things that, like I said, I think a lot of Florida State fans weren't sure would ever happen. I mean, yeah, that weekend run in 2012, and yeah, they also made the ACC championship game in 2009, and they also made it in, was it 2021? They lost to Georgia Tech. Was that the year of the COVID tournament? The last hurrah. They made that last Sweet 16 on the Scotty Barnes team. So I think, I mean, it's a lot to reckon with. I mean, frankly, what makes it even more impressive, if I'm being honest, is the different ways he did it. I mean, we think about those late 2000s, early 2010s teams where the style was very the race to 50 is what we used to call it. You know, they were about the junkyard defense. They were about like just trying to make things as hard as possible. Not Virginia, but like Virginia-esque in terms of trying to slow the game down and take the air out of the ball. That fades away. They kind of go through a bit of a tough spot, and then they come out on the other side with kind of a revamped recruiting. You really look at that Dwayne Bacon, Malik Beasley, Terrence Mann year, and totally changed the playing style and made it high flying and made it high scoring and tried to keep that defense, and a lot of times did keep that defensive intensity, but it was more about attacking and being aggressive and kind of the thing that always sticks with you about a Leonard Hamilton team. He was very smart in saying, and I think whoever the next coach is could probably take heed of a similar philosophy. My 1 through 5 aren't going to be as good as kind of the rest of the ACC, but so I need my 6 through 10 to be better. And I mean, you look at the depth of especially those teams on this second run and just how impressive the depth was and how, I mean, they had to rotate pretty heavily because of how nonstop the onslaught of defensive intensity and offensive aggressiveness was. I mean, the man reinvented himself a few times, even multiple times at Florida State, and it's pretty remarkable when you consider that on top of everything else.
Elite 8 in 2018, Sweet 16 2019, Sweet 16 2021. I wrote recently he wasn't old at 72 when those Sweet 16s were going on. It felt like a lot of people said he's old now at 76 as the program is in a tailspin. Let's be honest, we've seen some losing seasons. That 9-23 team where the injuries and the depth weren't there. This could be a fourth straight season without a postseason appearance, not looking anywhere near good for NCAA tournament. Potential there for an NIT run, and you might think that if Florida State kind of puts things together, the NIT might say they really want Leonard Hamilton to have a few more dances in March, whether that's at home, on the road. We'll see how that plays out. A lot happened today, Monday. Candidly, a lot of us in the media got a phone call. It was going to happen, team meeting around 3 p.m. They were going to find out as a team officially that Leonard Hamilton had made this decision. The press release says resigning officially. I think it's a retirement. Yes, it's unlikely to find another job as a head coach in college basketball moving forward, but I think we will probably see him active in some regard in college basketball.
Well, it's entirely possible, too. He doesn't want to say retiring because he's still going to be involved with his gospel label. He has that. We haven't talked about a man, I mean, also launched and runs a gospel music label on top of being a college basketball coach for the last extended period of time.
And I don't think we're going to get too deep into this, but hey, this continues a really wild trend of late. You know, Tony Bennett, Virginia, in October saying he's stepping down, and who knows what he does down the road. Jim Larinaga down at Miami just after Christmas, deciding in the middle of the season he wasn't going to continue. It was really tough for him to reconcile. I believe he said 8 players right after that Final Four were contemplating jumping in the portal. That's tough. We just saw it with Dave Clawson at Wake Forest. I watched most of Dave Clawson's press conference. He said he retired earlier than he expected, thinking he would have stuck around a little bit longer. But the realities of transfers, the portal, the NIL demands of just the marketplace that it is for a lot of college athletics, a lot of college athletes, has prompted him to think about what he wants to do. We'll see what these great men decide to do down the road. But from a college athletics infrastructure, we are in some interesting times where I think a lot of people are navigating how do you function. I think Leonard Hamilton, maybe we can talk about this a little bit, Kurt. It's been a repeated storyline for Coach Ham. Like you said, his 1 through 10 was going to be really, really good. That 6 through 10 was going to be enough. That 6 through 10 of late this year was clearly not good enough. He often, I think, said inconsistency has been a storyline for this team, that he's also been lacking experience. as he would in the past. You couldn't lean on the redshirt juniors, the redshirt seniors, as in past years. You didn't have a Harrison Prieto, a Justin Lindner, a green team, a green squad guy who could help you to mold some of those younger players. College basketball has just rapidly, I think, changed. I would say Leonard Hamilton tried too late to adapt to some of these things, but it just wasn't happening at the rate that I think a lot of people wanted. And honestly, a lot of you as fans have said, why didn't this announcement come sooner? Was it too late? In a lot of people's eyes, I think respect is a factor. I think Coach Hamilton didn't want to put the pressure on players to win this next game for Coach. I have no idea how you practice this afternoon, this evening, if you're a Florida State basketball player, or how you play tomorrow night against Notre Dame if you're a Florida State basketball player. It's a lot moving forward. I'm not sure where to go from this, Kurt, but this is a lot for players, whether you've played with him for a couple of years like a Jameer Watkins, or you're just a new guy who's just showed up maybe in May or June. This is a lot to process, right?
It is, and I think that's a part of, too. I hadn't considered it, but I think that is a strong case to be made for maybe why, whether this was known or not, it wasn't announced at the start of the year. I mean, I think we all knew he was in the final year of his contract. I think we also all knew, even if it was known this was going to be his last year, and maybe that's true, maybe it's not. We haven't heard that. It doesn't really matter at this point. That's not him. Leonard Hamilton would not want the farewell tour victory lap. Like, that is absolutely not his style, to have that type of attention on him or to be lauded like that. I mean, it's just never been what motivates him or what he's about. So I think, I think another angle, though, you're right, is it does put pressure on now. I mean, to try and send him out in a good way. And I think, I mean, you hope it inspires the fans for the final couple of home games. I don't know exactly how many home games they have left, but you hope it lights a fire there of sending out. Because, like, we all know how the last 4 years have been, but the last 4 years can't overwhelm the body of work. Like, I would hope no one holds bitterness because of how it ended towards Leonard Hamilton. I would encourage you to think about the good times and how he did things that I'm sure you thought you might never see the Florida State basketball team do.
So Florida State back at home again Tuesday night, Notre Dame, 7 p.m. I don't have the TV information on that yet. Probably an ACC network type of game. You know, as Kurt mentioned, a couple home games left. So if you're kind of tracking on your calendar, do you want to make it back to Tallahassee? Do you just want to be in front of the TV set? Clemson, February 15, that's a Saturday. February 19th, Miami. February 24th, North Carolina. And then, believe it or not, March 8th, SMU is the final home game at 4 p.m. That will be Andy Enfield's return to Tallahassee with SMU. Again, Andy, a former Florida State assistant who was really big in those early years as far as helping to build this program alongside Ham and Stan. And if you remember way back, this is kind of old, but Andy Enfield was the guy that made sure Florida State was one of the best free throw shooting teams on any Division I college campus. That was Andy's kind of thing. And so that will be a final game, a really interesting storyline when we get to March 8th. If you're counting wins and losses, just out of curiosity, how this could play out, Florida State 13-9 currently. Taking a quick look at Ken Palm, Florida State's expected to go, looks like 3-6 the rest of the way. So Ken Palm projecting a 17-14 record with wins over Notre Dame, Miami, Virginia, a couple close losses in there. So again, let's use the old Leonard Hamilton line. A typical ACC blowout is 1 point or 2 point. We're going to see some tight games down the stretch because this Seminoles team is playing with some serious emotions. Kurt, I think the fan base really wants to know what's next. What will the coaching search look like? Who are some potential names? We'll do a quick commercial break here from our Osceola sponsors. I know we haven't done too many of these Seminole Sidelines, but we're going to be back in the rhythm here in February. I know we've got some good recruiting shows coming up, National Signing Day being Wednesday, where a couple more prospects will sign with Florida State. Pat Burnham, Nick Carlisle, those guys will have some good shows for you coming up. Let's take a quick commercial break. We'll come back and look at the future of Florida State basketball, what's coming up next.
The Backshore. That stretch of fluffy sand just beyond the reach of the salty waves. A place reserved for volleyball nets, cookouts, and the air filled with fun and laughter. Celebrate the Backshore with Backshore Apparel. Grab an amazingly soft and comfy Backshore Apparel beach hoodie to keep you protected from the sun's harmful rays. Or the Backshore revamped trucker hat, a modern twist on a classic favorite. Crafted from moisture-wicking fabrics, ensuring they're lightweight and breathable. Not to mention durable with their unique floating feature. Shop now at BackshoreApparel.com. And right now, FSU fans get 10% off your order with code FSU10. Finding an experienced lawyer you can trust is crucial. With over 50 years of combined litigation experience, the attorneys at Mowry Law Firm are dedicated to providing our clients with exceptional legal services, focusing on car and trucking accidents, premises liability, and wrongful death. Call 904-824-7799, MowryLaw.com. Hey Seminole fans, Alumni Hall is your ultimate FSU shopping experience and has moved to a new location off Timberlane Road in Tallahassee. Shop FSU gear from Nike, Champion, New Era, Yeti, and more. Alumni Hall has Seminole gear for the entire family, plus accessories and gifts. Spend $150 and you'll earn $10 off your next purchase with their Hall Pass rewards. Stop by their new location on Timberlane Road near REI or shop anytime online at alumnihall.com. Alumni Hall, where Seminole fans shop.
Welcome back, Seminole Sidelines, Monday afternoon. Appreciate Kurt Weiler coming back here. I'm Bob Ferranti. We've been talking a little bit about Leonard Hamilton's future, the state of Florida State basketball. I felt after those losses out west, Cal and Stanford, that this wasn't trending in the right direction toward the NCAA tournament. Wrote down some thoughts in the Osceola Village, and I appreciate a lot of you have read those there. Kurt gave me some input as well as Jerry. And we've been chatting there about some various things. I think a key date that a lot of people have discussed is, look, it's similar to football. That transfer portal date opens up really fast. It's right around March 15th for college basketball. So you're not going to see players departing in the middle of March Madness if they're in the NCAA tournament. It's dissimilar to the bowl structure of college football. But March 15th is pretty huge as far as having a coach in place, having just being ready to hit the ground running and say, I'm going to go out and recruit you, or come on down to Tallahassee so that we can have a visit. May not have assistant coaches in place, may not have the full infrastructure there, but March 15th is going to come up pretty quickly. I haven't had the chance to ask this question yet, but I wonder if, because we're at February 3rd and March 15th is coming up fast, did the portal maybe expedite some decisions, expedite an announcement? Because now you can go out there as Michael Alford, potentially a search committee. We don't know if one has been formed just yet, but potentially you can go out there to the agents around the country and say, we're interested in so-and-so. Is your coach interested, or which of your coaches under your agency are interested? I think some of the hot names are going to be all those people around college basketball. Let's start with the finances. Leonard Hamilton makes $2.25 million each year. It's a great paycheck. It doesn't compare with, say, Dennis Gates at $4.1 million at Missouri. The investment in college basketball is massive. It's going to be big for Florida State moving forward. Head coach, assistant coach, support staff. Do you hire a general manager of whatever? You need NIL money moving forward. Everybody's going to want revenue share moving forward. And a lot of schools are going to do 75% to football, and every other sport's going to be pushing for the remaining chunks. Okay, Kurt, we can go in a lot of different directions here. We can talk Luke Laux, Sam Cassell, hot names around college basketball. What are your immediate thoughts as you think this job is open for somebody with Florida State ties or somebody just without Florida State ties?
I mean, it's hard not to go immediately to Luke Laux, especially when I've already seen someone on Twitter, a national college football or college basketball writer, we've been on the show, say that they expect Luke Laux to be seriously involved in the conversation to replace Leonard Hamilton. Jeff Goodman has already come out and said that, and I don't think that's a surprise to anyone. I mean, I think the thing with a Florida State, I think there are a lot of directions you could go, but I think Florida State ties for a job like this do make a lot of sense from a standpoint of, like, yes, you can make the case against either of Laux or Cassell of saying they don't have head coaching experience. They've not been a head coach. Cassell's been right on the fringe of the NBA for a while. Laux rose through the ranks pretty quickly, and he's been on the Kings now the last few years after he was with the Warriors, but the Kings fired their head coach not long ago. So you wonder if he has a job set up for next year, if he's probably potentially going to be on the market. So I think the thing is, a place like you could take a swing at a mid-major type, a guy who's been a head coach and had success, but there is some you don't know how a guy's going to make that jump, how a guy's going to maybe handle being one of the lower funded programs in his conference compared to maybe he's leaving a place where he's a higher funded. And B, I think you can make a pretty strong case that if the mid-major guy who doesn't have ties comes in and has success, he may parlay it to a better job. He may parlay to a job where he can be paid $4 million like Dennis Gates at Missouri or more like plenty of other guys. I think that's so the FSU ties just to me make a lot of sense from a standpoint of I think that's the world where even if a guy has success, you might be able to hold on to him for quite a while. And it might be a long-term thing if he does have success because of, I think you ask those guys that might maybe consider this a dream job or something in that conversation.
There's a lot of things that this search could go in many different directions. Like you're saying, you could go for the power conference assistant who's a hot name, somebody who recruits well. You can go for the mid-major guy who's built that program for years and years. I know last year we were all talking about Dusty May at Florida Atlantic even before he made and finished that incredible run. But look at where he ended up at Michigan at let's be honest, a Big Ten school with just a massive war chest of money to bring in prospects, football, basketball, etc. I think one other dynamic I should just kind of mention here is regardless of how this House NCAA settlement comes through, we think the judge will rule on it in early April. I think April 1 has been the date that we've seen kind of put out there quite a bit. NIL can be front-loaded. NIL contracts can now be front-loaded before what we presume is a July 1 deadline. And then from there on, those NIL contracts will go through a clearinghouse, presumably through Deloitte. So once you get into July 1, it's going to be heavily regulated. Before then, any head coach could probably come in and generate NIL capital in a hurry. Why does Luke Laux or Sam Cassell or somebody in the Florida State family make sense? Because you can shake a lot of hands. You can hold a lot of FaceTime calls, Zoom discussions. You can go fan to fan, Kiwanis Club, Rotary Club. You can go all around and ask for money. And I think when you have the name Luke Laux or Sam Cassell, you are a powerful fundraiser in a very narrow window for this program. I know they haven't been head coaches before, but that's why these types of hires might make sense. The Dennis Gates thing is an interesting discussion. Would he come back to Tallahassee? Would he presumably take a similar salary? Would you look at a guy like a Charlton Young, who's been at Florida State for a long time? He was a head coach at Georgia Southern back in the day. It didn't work out for him. CY has been on the Missouri staff for a few years, even recruited really well in this area. I believe he brought a player from Florida High over to Missouri. So there are options. Go ahead, Kurt.
Yeah, well, and CY's talked pretty candidly, and I'm inclined to believe him, whether it's here or elsewhere. Because he's talked, I talked to him quite a few times when he was at Florida State about how much more well-equipped he feels to be a head coach this time around because of all he learned from Leonard Hamilton. Like he didn't have that Hamilton tie. He hadn't worked for Ham when he was the head coach at Georgia Southern. It's all kind of been after. And I think I have to imagine learning from both Leonard and from Dennis Gates, I think has much better prepared him to be a head coach in the near future somewhere, whether that's Florida State or whether that's somewhere else.
I remember Dennis Gates telling us, and it might have been at the Cleveland State days where he made a run to the NCAA tournament before jumping to Mizzou, but he said he used to sit in Leonard Hamilton's office with notebooks, just scribbling down notes as part of their conversation. So always a student around Leonard Hamilton. So I think this is a good place for us to stop. We're about 25 minutes in. I know there's probably a lot of questions that you'll have moving forward. We'll be on the Osceola Village. We'll be talking about Florida State basketball, Leonard Hamilton's legacy, what's next, as we're hearing names or as we're hearing how this search will go. Will there be a committee? Where does it all kind of transpire? It's going to move fast. Let's be honest. Again, The March 15th deadline is pretty quick because you need to have somebody in place to move forward. I think it's all about player retention, player acquisition, fundraising. And these are some really key storylines, I think, for Florida State basketball that we're going to be seeing unfold for the next 4 to 6 weeks. What's Leonard Hamilton's role in the very short term as he tries to help the transition of a coach? How does Stan Jones help in that role too, as far as a transition? Would the next head coach want Stan Jones to stick around? And you have to think if it's somebody like Luke Laux, if it's somebody with a real connection to Florida State, they might look to Stan as someone who's a stabilizing force, a lead assistant type to help in the day-to-day. All right. Appreciate it. This was kind of an unscheduled emergency show, but Kurt Weiler and I wanted to sit down, share some thoughts. Again, we've got the story on the Osceola. Leonard Hamilton has resigned effective at the end of the season, 2024-25. We'll see how the next 9 regular season games play out. Kurt's going to have a column for you later tonight with some more thoughts. But again, thanks for watching the Osceola Seminole Sidelines. If you're not a subscriber, please hit the like and subscribe button to keep following our channel. We'll have recruiting and more videos in the coming week. We'll have, you can listen back to some of these shows as podcasts if you prefer, as you're walking the dog or at the gym or running errands. These will all become podcasts. So check it out. Spotify, Apple, your podcast platform of choice. Again, for Kurt Weiler, I'm Bob Ferranti. Thanks for watching. Take care, and we'll talk to you soon.